We're up to the two dots on the bottom of page Zion on the basement in the middle of Agarata. About 8 lines off the bottom. Tani Reb Chia, my dichsiv Elokim Haven Darka, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows her way, who Yod Es Mekoma, and he knows her place. Yodei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Es Yisrael, She'en Yicholim L'Kalba Gzeres Achsorias, Edom. He knew that we wouldn't be able to go ahead and accept the horrible, cruel Gezeres of Edom. Therefore, Hashem, instead of putting us in Gullus to Rome, he put us in Gobel to Bavel, which is they're nicer people, believe it or not. The Kazdim are nicer people. Because it's deep like a grave. Shinemar miyad shol eftem, from the hands of the grave I will redeem them. Imaves egolem, and from Maves I will go ahead and again lashon of redemption, and that's the lashon of Shaol and bubbles. You know, the Gemara spoken many times that bubble was wet because the waters would come in there because it was a valley. The reason Hashem put us in Golus Babel because the Aramaic is similar to Lashon Kodesh. They sent us to the house of our mother. Mashallah Adam Shekoyas Alishtoi, Ketzang his wife, Lahechin Mishagra. Where does he send her to? Where does she run away to? The Beisim, she goes home to mommy. So where do we go home? We go home to Mesopotamia, Babel, where Avram Avinu came from. Behind the Rebbe, Alexandria, three people return to their source. Elohein Yisrael Keser Mitzrayim, the Ukesav Luchais. Yisrael Hodamaran, Yisrael, like we just said, we went back to our source, we went to Mesopotamia, to Babel, which is where we came from. Kesef Mitzrayim Dechsiv, now by he Shana Chamishis Lamelech Rechavam, Ola Shishak Melech Mitzrayim Al Yerushalayim, and the pasuk says, Vayikach es Oitzrois Beis Hashem, es Oitzrois Beis Hamelech, ves Hakol Lokach. So he took it all back. There's a Meshech Chochmah that says when we went out of Mitzrayim, when you're not Bnei Yisrael of Mitzrayim, they had all the kesef in the world was there. Well, how did it get there? The Rav B'nai Yosef, right? Everyone came down to Mitzrayim, and the pasuk Torah tells us they sold everything. They mishabed themselves as indentured servants. So all the gold was Mitzrayim. So we took it out of Mitzrayim. We took it all out. And Mitzrayim, the Gemara by the Zohar says the Mitzrayim came with a taina. We should pay them back. And somebody made a cheshbon, pay them back. Okay, let's figure out the wages for 210 years.
How many people?
Not so fast. You know, deal with a Jewish accountant. That's what we're going to get, right? A cheshbon right away. But that money now went back to its source. It went back to Mitzrayim as a result of Shishak. Ksava luchos. The luchos were written etzber lekim. Ichsiv ve'eshbrem leinechem. It says it doesn't say ve'eshbrem lefanechem. It says leinechem. Rashi says kloimar dava pella reisem sham. They saw a peladik thing. Sha'ayin pointed l'stakel. They saw something that the eyes were drawn to go ahead and see. What did they see? Tana luchos nishbaru. The luchos were broken. The oisios parchos, and the oisios were flying. Now this is taka pellet shevet pellet the guys. We have the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. It tells us that Chanina ben Trajan was Sarugim Malchus. The Romans they went ahead. They put around him the Sefer Torah, and they lit the Torah. And they asked him, "What do you see?" And he says, "I see the oisios parchos v'avir." The difference the Marsha says between the luchos and the Torah is haflu v'fela. What was the luchos, guys? It was engraved on a stone. It wasn't ksav b'dayoi. It wasn't written in ink where you remove the parchment, there's letters to be seen. It was holes. As a matter of fact, the mem and the samech, right? It was a nest that it stayed, the end of the mem and the samech, because you had the middle, right? You had the middle floating around. And this is what you saw. So they saw a peladik thing. And this lucha is going back to its source, going back to the Borei Alma. So three things. Yisrael, going back to Bavel, Kesef, going back to Mitzrayim, and the lucha is the Ksav. And more than Ksav, it's amazing. Think about it. It's like even much more powerful than Ksav. So going back to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Ulu Amar, what's the reason we went to Bavel? No, it had nothing to do with language. It had nothing to do with the Xarius. What did it have to do with Elam Kadesh Yechloi Tamarim? It seems, Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted to give us a good diet, and a good diet would have been to eat tamarim, to eat dates. And by eating dates, you'll be able to be Isaac and Torah, you'll be satiated. Ula Ikla Pumbedisa. Ula came from Eretz Yisrael. He came to the town of Pumbedisa in Bavel. Krevele Tarina de Tamre. They brought in front of him a basket full of dates. Amalahu, he said, Kama Kihani. How much would this cost? He goes, bezuzah, a cheap amount. Very simple. So I'm a lay. Flas bezuzah, Amar Mole Tzina, Ufsha bezuzah, Ubavli Oscar Baraisa. So he said, how much is this for zuz? They told him 3 zuz. So he goes, you can get a whole basket and for zuz. And the Babylonians, they're not Isaac and Pyra. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing. But Belila, after he indulged in the too much grapes, night he had I guess he must have had a massive stomach ache. Omar, he switched his tune. Molei tzina sam the musa bezusa bebavel ubavloy oiski baraisa. Mamish, they have a basket full of the sama maves, poison. These dates will kill you. And the oisik b'tayras things can change. Keherafayin. For Omer Rebbe Laza, my dechsiv v'holchu amim rabim v'omru l'chu v'nale el Har Hashem. We'll go to Har Hashem. El beis elokei Yaakov. Says Gemara elokei Yaakov v'lei elokei Avram v'Yitzchak. So this is speaking about, guys, this is speaking about the third Beis Hamikdash. So he says what? It says, Ela loika Avraham shekasav boy har. Not like Avraham who called it what? A har. Shneimar, asher yoma hayom bahar Hashem yiroeh. Right? He said by the Akedah. Loiki Yitzchak shekasav boy sadeh. Shneimar, vayetze Yitzchak l'suach basadeh by Mincha when he met Rivka. This is also the har. El Yaakov Shekara Bayis. Yaakov called it a house. Shinemar Vayikra Shem Amakam Ahu Beis El. He called this place Beis El. So Mashur says that Avram the Har is referring to the first bias. Yitzchak the Sod is the second bias, and Yaakov again. This is Yeshaya is speaking about the third bias, and therefore what? The Yaakov. It's speaking about
Yaakov. That's why it says Beis Yaakov.
That's what it says over here, right? That's why it says Beis Elokei Yaakov. So says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Gadol Kibbutz Golias Kiyom Shnirva Shemayim Baretz. Great is the gatherings of the Golias as the day that Shemayim Baretz was created. Shnemar V'niknesu b'nei Yehuda u'bnei Yisrael Yachtav V'samu lehem Rosh Echad V'olim min ha'aretz Ki Gadol Yom Yisrael. The keyword being Yom U'ksiv Ba'yir V'yivoke Yom Echad. So that the day of Israel, guys, they was, remember we saw the Tosfos yesterday? Look at the Tosfos on the base yesterday. Easy Tosfos. Israel, al shem ha'asid sheyazru begoila. They called them Israel. They'll be what? They'll be spread out in the gullus. They plant in the gullus. So now all the spread out is coming all back together again. It's coming back together again. It's a very nice. I just thought of something that might be very nice. Since I thought of it, I think it's very nice. It feels like this. The day of the gathering of the Golos, bring everyone together, is the day like you create Shemayim Baretz. What's the creation of Shemayim Baretz? What's the first Rashi in the Torah? Bereshis. Bishvil Yisrael Shnik Bereshis Barlik Shemayim Baretz. What's the purpose of creation? Us. So Mamela, the day that we're all gathered together, coming together, new Mamela is like the Bria. Like what's the on the Bria? That makes sense. Yankel likes it. I know. Okay. Says the Gemara. We saw in the Mishnah that a Yasam, that two apotropin. I was wrong. I told you wrong yesterday. This is a katanim. You're right, but we're going to see in a second. The apotropsin, you have two apotropsin, lashon rabim, that they went ahead and they shech the korban Pesach. He can eat from wherever he wants. What's the problem, guys? Mandy, what's the problem? Excellent. The problem is it's a problem of breira, right? Why? Because you have to be b'shash shchita. You have to be counted in. The havamina is it's speaking. After the karbanos are brought, wherever he wants, he can eat. So what's going to happen? Retroactively, great to see you. Retroactively, he's going to say, this is the place I wanted to go ahead and be part of. So, that's Breira. So, and we said, we know we paskin ain Breira. Says the Gemara, Shmami no yesh Breira, that the cotton can eat everywhere. Rav Zera, sell a bias. Says sell a bias, mikol makom. In other words, says Rashi, the cotton does not need das. The cotton does not need das, so it's not a shayla of breira. Says Rashi, sell a bias, ish balabayis, yukochenu, the ish to balabayis should take it, l'chol b'nei beisoi, the ain't tzarech daiton, he doesn't need their das. The Gemara is going to qualify who doesn't need their das, but certainly ketanim, you don't need their das. So if it's ish apotropis takes for the cotton, wherever he goes, since they both had him in mind, it's not like whoever Adav Freya. You don't need a das. No, they take care of everything. I mean, that's a financial thing.
because you never need him for cotton. Now, but trust for cotton is only because.
Let's say this is a din in chinuch. This is a din in chinuch. The mitzvah sharia. You look at the Taisus. Sell the bias mikol makam pirish mishum to sell the bias lav daraisa. It's not daraisa, and therefore you can go ahead and do it with the cotton. It says vim time out. Listen, Taisus. Ve'heich Michael Pesach shalolim nuyav. Now, if you're telling me a cotton doesn't have das and is out of the ballpark, and he's not considered, in other words, it really doesn't work. It's all the Rabbanan. How could you feed him a carbon pesach that he wasn't counted in on? You're not allowed to feed him trefis, tarfis, right? So how can you feed him a carbon pesach that he's not counted in on? That's places kasha. If you go, cotton goes into McDonald's, you don't have to stop him. Listen, but to go ahead and take the McDonald's and put it in his mouth, that you can't do. In other words, I don't have to stop him from going in, but to go ahead and feed him not. So question, how can I feed him a carbon pesach that he wasn't counted in on? Right? The that's, in other words, you can't feed him something similar to a sheretz or an avela. The ikka chinuch mitzvah shari. You hear this? The mitzvah to eat the carbon pesach, they be permitted. Even it's all the Rabbanan. The place is learning this whole thing, sell the bias, the Rabbanan, whichever place he wants to eat. Ein achinami, he really doesn't count, but mitzvah chinuch of eating the carbon pesach. Good.
Very interesting. You said that Travis in lieu of the father, because his father's not around, has the chiyuv of chinuch to his child.
Anything. There's not a chiyuv of chinuch over here. This. No, I'm saying again. There is. We want to go ahead and be mechanech children, right? So again, Daf Yomi does this. He's going to send him to yeshiva. He's going to put him tzitzis on. Of course, there's an Indian.
But if you have a guest,
yeah,
he's not part of your. You didn't have a mind for him to eat from the carbon. How do you? What does he do?
He's out of luck. You have to have in mind, and he has to be counted in. He has to he has to say, since he's a guest. In other words, minastam.
If he's a guy, a poor guy on the street doesn't know where to go, you bring him home.
See, that's the big kasha. The Pesach say that.
Yeah,
you look at the Torah, got big Torah on that. Torah on that. What do you mean? You can't bring him in. It's famous kasha. You're looking at any God you have that kasha, right? Now you know. Now you know. No, it's not. Now you understand the kasha, right? Right? What does that mean? You can't be Yaitza. You look it up. I don't remember offhand. It's concept there. Okay, anyway. So Fred Maria, it's very celibate. Now, Tanarabana, we're going to try to qualify who do you have in mind, who don't you have in mind. Tanarabana. Celibate, Melamed Sh'odam maybe b'shachtai, a person can bring a carbon pesach. B'shachet al yidei beno b'ito ketanim. He could shecht for what? For beno and b'ito ketanim. Al yidei avdoi b'shivchasei kenanim. He could check for his evet v'shivcha kenanis. Again, just to point out, an evet and shivcha mechuyev b'mitzvah k'isha. Beimi daitim mishleim daitim. You don't need their das. You don't need their das. Aval ena shoichet al yidei beno b'ito agedolim. Al yidei avdoi b'shivchasei avodim. The evet ivrim. Excuse me. Shivchasei ivrim. These are full-fledged Jews. His das doesn't help. But al yidei ishtoi elemi daitan. Oh, those three gedolim. Avdei v'shivcha ivrim, and Amin Ivriya, and what? And his wife. So we have the same brisa, but it's going to link to a little bit. Tanya Yidach. Lo yishchad adam, a person should not shecht. Lo yal yidei b'no b'ita gedolim. So we take the safer first. Lo yal yidei avdei v'shivcha ivrim. Lo yal yidei ishtay el midaiton. Avol shoichet hu al yidei b'no b'ita ketanim. Yidei avdei v'shivcha kenanim. Baby dynamite shlominat. Okay. So right then and there, everything's equal, right? We just switch the order around, but no halachic difference. The kulon sheshachtu, and let's say you do shecht for them. The shachat rabban aleim, they shecht. The kulon sheshachtu, they go ahead and shecht. They're going ahead and shechting their own, and the rabban shechts for them. The rabban shechts for them. We're on Peiches Amud Aleph Tak, 2 lines up from the wide lines. The shachat rabban aleim, yoitzim b'shel rabban, then yoitzim b'shel atzmon. Then they're Yotze with the Rebbe, but they're not Yotze with themselves. Chutz mina Isha, with the exception of the Isha, she'echolim limchais, because they're able to go ahead and she's able to go ahead and say, I don't want. She's able to say, I don't want. That's what it says. Now, question. L'chayra, what's the difference between a woman or a ben gadol, ben katan, or an eved ivri? What's the difference? They all have das, right? So why can she protest and then not? So on that, Amarava, Isha v'chol dedamala. It means a woman and anyone similar to the woman. So all of them can go ahead and protest. All of them can say no. You shecht, I'm shechting, right? If I don't want him, I'll be yotzer mine. Now, Hagufa Kasha. Innately, the Bryce is shver. On one hand, he said the following: Chutz min isha sheyichol limchais. Now, why is the woman not yotzer? Because she's able to make a macha. She's able to say, I don't want. Stamazoi, if she doesn't say, I don't want, what's the din? Good. The reason why it doesn't count, because she says, ich will nicht. And you know what it said? I don't want. What happens if she says, stam, nothing? Pashta stam, she would be counted in, right? Good. So now, Taima, the reason why his carbon doesn't work for the woman, the machi, because she made a macha. She said, I don't want. Hala machi, but if she didn't make a macha, nafka shel baila, then she would be yetz with her husband. Fred the Gemara, v'katani reisha, v'loya yidei ishtai, ela midaitan. You need the isha to verbalize yes. Hastama loy nafka. Many times, guys, we've had this many times, right? When we contrast the reisha to the seifa, and we say hagufa kasha, without any outside source, it itself is fair. So let's analyze, guys. We have a statement. All of them was shecht, right? All of them was shecht, and the Rebbe and the master shechts, yotze with the master, except the isha, because she can be moicha. Mashma, if she's not moicha, she doesn't complain, she doesn't say no. Yotze, good. The Freisha says the isha is only yotze midaiton. Mashma, she has to go ahead and verbalize, I want to be part of it. But she didn't verbalize, she's not. So you have a stira from the reisha to the seifa. The reisha stomach doesn't work, and the seifa stomach does work. How do you go ahead and reconcile the two? After Gemara, my el midaiton. Let's change the reisha. When it says the reisha midaiton, lav the omrei ayin. It's not that she said yes. El mistama lafuki hechadam aloy. In other words, guys, this works for me all the time. Milchix, fleishix, parav. In other words, milchix is one side of the coin. Parav is don't say anything, and fleishix is the other side. So we had, what was the kasha? In order for her to be part of it, she has to say fleishix, right? She has to say fleishix. And what's the answer? And mashma, if she doesn't say fleishix, that what? That it's no good. And the answer is no. As long as she doesn't say milchix, it's okay. As long as she doesn't go to the other extreme. As long as she doesn't say no, I don't want it. But stoma, it would work. So therefore, that would be a teretz. Fred the Gemara, so you tell me stoma would work, but kulam sheshach, the Sefer says, all of them that you shech, v'shachad rabban aleihem, yotzim b'shel rabbam. Why? The b'stoma. Good. In other words, all of them that shechted, and the master shechted for them, he is speaking stam. They didn't say anything. V'katani chutz min isha mifnei sheichol limchos. Right. So you see that what? You see that stam. It's no good. And since they shechted, they don't have to verbalize it. The fact that they brought the carbon in itself is a macha. In other words, you don't have to look at a piece of meat and say it's fleishix. It screams out on fleishix. The fact that they shechted the carbon Pesach shows they don't want to have anything to do with it. So stom, if they didn't do anything, a taka would be good. But in a case over here where they went in and shechted, then therefore what? That's a macha. That's a verbalization of no. What? This is not never Kanani, it's never Ivri. This is an Evid Ivri. Evid Ivri. Kulan's Evid Ivri, right. Evid Kanani not. Now, in Evid Kanani is Mechuyev and Mrs. Kisha.
Yeah, but so therefore he could bring, or he can't.
I think he's counted in with his master. I think he's counted in with his master, the Evid. I think so, because I think he probably could bring, I'm thinking the top of my head, he doesn't have anything to bring. Masha kan Evid kan Rabbi. But if you have a Heka Timsa, let's say somebody gave it to him, then he could bring it.
They have a side job.
No, I'm saying, that's not, there's nothing as a side job. Let's say someone gives him something, Al Menashe Ein LeRabbi Rishuspa.
Right, okay.
Then he would have to bring it. Then he could bring the Korban Pesach. He's Mechuyev Mrs. Kisha, so l'chayre he can bring it. You know.
A lady can't bring one either because not Spanish can
A lady could bring again. She has to see me look. She can get. you said Maisa Yadav. She does more. She makes a deal with her husband, right? I guess I don't want. I'm like my Taisef is Ksuba. There's ways a woman can get geld. Trust me. They're good at spending it, and they're not as good as getting it. Okay, you didn't hear that. Okay. Anyway, my wife will never listen to this. Baruch Hashem.
I mean, you didn't totally retire from fasting yet. Be careful.
What are you talking about? They're not listening from this either. Don't worry. Trust me. Evel Shashnei Shutafim. Okay, guys, let's see the next thing in the Mishnah. The next thing in the Mishnah. Evel Shashnei Shutafim lo yochel mishal shneihem. Right now, Misha Chetzev Evel Chetzev and Chayrin half and half lo yochel mishal Rabbi. Now, so you have two shutfin. Each one brings the korban Pesach. He can eat from neither one. How come? Let's see the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Rami lay evet shoshnei shtufin. He doesn't eat from either one. Rami lay Rav Eina Sabel Rav Nachman. Tanan evet shoshnei shtufim lo yochel mishal shneihem. Iva Tanya ratzim yizah oichel ratzim yizah oichel. Mashmi says double option. You can eat from either one. So Amalei Rav Nachman told him Eina Sabel. But you others say to him, he said Pasya Uchma, black pot, right? The black is a lotion of people who generally fasted a lot. Their skin turned a pigment from fasting. So these people moist nefesh for Torah, they managed to eat. So it's black over here. It's where Black lives really matter, right? Because again, this is speaking about B'nai Torah. So pasya uchma, mine uminoch tistayim shmaitza. Between us, we'll be able to answer the sugya. Masnisan, our Mishnah is speaking where you're not yaitza. Is speaking with the kapti ahadodi. The two shutfin are makbid. So I'm makbid on my chelik that you shouldn't have enough from him. So therefore he can't use your carbon. You're makbid on my chelik, and therefore what? So either way, he's messed up. So that's pshat what you can't. The Brisa is speaking the loy kapti ahadodi. They're not makbid. So therefore, ratzim izeh. In other words, I'm meichel my chelik. He's meichel his chelik. Anything goes. It's good. Now let's say you have two partners in an eved. And one guy frees him. Now, this is sugya appears in Shas a few times, and it's always the same sugya. As a matter of fact, I spoke this out the other day. It appears repeating because the Gemara is going to say it. It was machloikis and gittin between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Someone frees an eved. Now, the halacha is when an eved is free, he becomes a Jew. I'll repeat it again. An eved ivri is a different sugya. He's not a goy. An Eved Ivri is a Miktsach Yisrael. The Rambam says the Lashon is a Miktsach Yisrael ben Miktsach. That's his Lashon. He's Yisrael ben Miktsach. Why? As soon as he was bought by a Jewish owner, he gets a bris milah, and he's put in a mikvah. So he's a Miktsach Yisrael, and he's Mechuyev Yisrael ben Miktsach. He's Mechuyev in Mitzvahs Kiisha.
Even if he's not interested?
Even if he's not interested. Shlo Yasani Goy, Shlo Yasani Oved. It's a different darga. When he's freed, he becomes a full-fledged Jew. When he's freed, he becomes so now. You got a guy, he's half a full-fledged Jew and half an Eved. Good. What do you do with this guy? So it says Beis Hillel, half a day he works and half a day he doesn't. Right? So he goes, you took care of the master, says Beis Shammai, but you didn't take care of him. Favos. He can't have a chasna with a Jewish woman because he's half an Eved. He can't live with a Shifra Kananis because he's half a Yid. And we force the master to go ahead and free him. So that's the Mishnah Rishona is Beis Hillel. The Mishnah Rishniya is Beis Shammai. So says the Gemara. Misha Chesiv Ever Chesiv Ben Chorin Lo Yochel Mishal Rabbi. Mishal Rabbi Hu Lo Yochel. Aval Mishal Atzma Yochel. Meaning he can bring a Korban Pesach itself, but Tanya Lo Yochel Lo Mishal Lo Mishal Rabbi. He can't eat from himself. He can't eat from his master. Right? He can't eat from himself. He can't eat from his master. Like Kasha Kan Commissioner Rishona Kan Commissioner Achroina. Let's says Rashi. Commissioner Rishona. Before Beis Hillel changed his mind, he can't eat his own because the chelik of his abdus is not nimshach after his das. You can only have das as the Jewish part, not the Eved part. However, the second part where he said he could eat from himself is speaking Commissioner Achroina. Since Bezdin can free him, and he can eat his own. Tednan, Misha Chesiv Eved Chesiv Ben Chorin, Oivedes Rabbi Yemechad Vesatzma Yemechad. Divrei Beis Hillel. V'shama Yoimrim on the days. Tekantem es Rabbi Vesatzma Tekantem. You took care of the master. You didn't take care of him. Why? Lisa shifcha in yachol shekvar chetzi ben chayrin. To marry a shifcha you can't because he's here free. Lisa bas chayrin in yachol shadayin chetzi bevet. Yivatel to go ahead and say he's batel. Torah was created for Piririv Shnemar, like Tohu Baraha, L'Sheves Yitzhara. It wasn't created to be what? To be void. It was created for Yitzhara. I think the Tosfos here somewhere. How come they didn't bring the pasuk of what? Of Pruvu Milos Aretz?
Yes.
What? Yeah, we asked that. I think because they want a woman is also mechoyev in this.
Sheves, no?
And Sheves, right? So this is the mitzvah of Sheves. And if they take an oil and kofin, it's Rabbi Beisner ben Chayvin. We force him. And if he doesn't, Bezdin does. The Kaiser Shtar Chatzi Damov and the Chazu Beis Hillel V'Horis Beis Shammai. So Mela, since Mishnah Rishon and Beis Hillel agreed with Beis Shammai, so once he's freed, then he can eat his own carbon. Rashain came and he said you can't eat. That was what before the Chazara, and the fact that his das as a ben chayrin does not help for his avdus, therefore he can't eat. Says the Mishnah, Ha'oimel Avdai. Someone says to his Eved the following: say v'shocher alai es a Pesach. Go and shecht for me a Pesach, right? Now, shochet gedi yochal, even though he usually brings a sheep. Shochet tle, if he shechts a sheep, yochal, even though he usually brings a goat. Again, there's two possibilities. It can be a goat or a sheep, a year-old male, correct? So the Eved brings the wrong one, but he didn't tell him to specify. So even though Minas Stam usually brings the other one, here, since he didn't specify, even though Minas Stam, he would be Yitzhak. So it's not like the Eved is going against his best wishes. It's not like the Eved is going against his best wishes. So now, what happens if he shechs both? Then he should eat from the first one that he brought. He should eat from. Now we're going to see what in the Gemara what this is speaking about. It's a little shver. You can't bring two karbanis. You're going to get into the Breira problem, right? It's going to be two karbanis. You're going to say whichever one he takes, it's over. Don't afraid. This is the one, right? You can't do that. So we can see it's speaking about a king. Shokach mash Amar Rabbi. The Eved forgot what the master told him. So what should he do? Yishchay tle ugedi shech both v'yomer and make the following condition: Im gedi amali Rebbe. If my master told me to bring a gedi, a goat, then shaloi. This is his gedi shaloi. The tle shali, and the tle is mine. Where did he get it from? Where did he get it from? Where did he get it from? So you have to say that what? That someone gave it to him. We're going to see. But you see over here that what? That Eved. Mandy got it? Good. The im tle amali Rebbe or Rabbi hatle shaloi v'gedi shali. Good. That will work out. In other words, I have a condition over here. However, shokach Rabbi amaloi. If the master forgot, then shneim yatzu lebeis hasreifa. Then they both have to be burnt. Why? Because when you shechted shleimin amnuyav, because you didn't know who was counted in. However, you butter from doing Pesach Sheni. Says Rashi, why? The shchita is rikam al yisahi. Chodeme ha'ahai v'chada adohai. The kamesh megalia. Because Baruch Hu knows which one is what is the carbon Pesach. So in other words, he can eat it, but he would be yaitza with one or the other. Now, going back over the Mishnah.
But he didn't eat it.
Okay. So,
but he didn't eat it. So what?
So what? We had a Gemara.
Don't you have to eat it? Isn't that part?
It's not ma'akiv. We had a Gemara earlier. It's not ma'akiv.
Okay.
Again, the Gemara said earlier that the question over here is whether Yotze of Pesach Sheni. Ideally, the current Pesach is supposed to be eaten. Therefore, it's brought b'toma. It's eaten. However, if you can't eat it, it's not ma'akiv, and you would be able Yotze Yechiv, and you're not doing the Pesach Sheni. That's not Afkamin and Halacha. Okay, very good.
But this is unusual. This case. It's not tumah. It's not a question of tumah. It's right to be eaten. It's a good animal. Just not sure which one.
Benji says, therefore.
I'm here and Benji's there.
Okay, anyway, Pshita. Are you feeling okay? You look very tired. Okay, good. Pshita. Shachit gedi. No, he's good. This is much better, by the way. It's you can see much better, and it's warm. Okay, now shachet gedi. You said yoichel afagav derogel betled. The chiddush is, guys, you look at the Mishnah. So you send an eved to go ahead and bring a korban pesach. So it's good. What's chiddush? The chiddush is he bringing the animal that you don't know. You like lamb chops. You're not big on goat chops. It doesn't even sound good. Goat chops, whatever. Did anyone eat goat here?
It's called mutton, Rabbi.
Did you ever eat it?
It's very gamey.
Yeah.
Did you ever eat it?
Oh, halal. That's what it's called.
Yes.
You did? You got it on Coney in the WH?
Off the back of the Salem rental truck.
Ay. Okay, anyway, so if you even Pshita Shachak Gedi Yochel Afagav Deragel Betleh. Shachak Tleh Yochel Afagav Deragel Begedi. Shachak Gedi Tleh Yochel Min Harishain. 1 second, but Anya Nimnam Al Shnei Pesachim Ke'echad. How it can't be counted on 2 Pesachim at the same time. So it's either or, but you can't eat either one. Maybe that's not the one. It says the Mishnah is speaking about a king and a queen. What does that mean? But Tanya Nimnam Al Shnei Pesachim Ke'echad. U'Maisa ben Melech. This is guys. The Tanya is a raya. Rashi doesn't say it, but it's a raya in the flow of the Gemara. It didn't make any sense. I was looking for the kasha. See, when Rashi doesn't say it, I get stuck. Because Vatanya is always a kasha. The Rashi says benichus, and I'm good. So I was preparing this, and I said, "Where's the kasha? Where's the kasha?" And then I see Rav Shai picks it on the side benichusa. If you look, do you have Vatanya? Do you have a letter by it? You have a little star by it or something? A letter? If you have the old Gemaras, it's to the left. If you have the new Gemaras, it's probably put a number there, and you have to look up the Messiah Shas at the top. It says Vatanya. Does it say benichusa? Arts. Oh, there's Artsko. It's Mefurish Artsko. Okay. So Tanya, a nimnam al shnei pesachim ke'echad, u'maisa b'melech u'malka, she'amru lavdeihem, say v'shachtu aleinu as pesach, go shech the Pesach for us, v'yotze v'shachtu aleihem shnei pesachim, bo v'shalu as hamelech, amru lahem, l'chu shalu as hamalka, go ask the malka, which one she wants, bo v'shalu min hamalka, amru lahem, l'chu v'shalu as Rav Gamliel, bo v'shalu as Rav Gamliel, amru lahem, Malka umelech the daitan kalaleim yochlim in arishain. The das of the melech and the malka, whose das is kala aleihem, let them go ahead and eat from whichever one. Rashi says the melech and malka shetluyim alav dehem. They don't care. They whatever the king. They might pee them al sudasan. That's what it means that in kala. They're not makbid. In gedin and floyim. Lokach ein kan din breira. It's shavaya nichle. They're both by both of them. Lefikach yochlim in arishain. The keep the lekha kapeda yatsa berishan yidechavasai either bechti nishchad. The other one's shechted for nothing. That's it. That's the way Rashi learns. Melcha malch is like the kalav aleim. The Rambam has a little different here. So the Rambam is goyris mishum shalom malchus. He eat the first of mishum shalom malchus. What's the shalom malchus? The Mishnah says that the king is going to get angry, right? The king's going to get angry. He's going to tell him you can't eat either one, right?
What would he get angry?
He's hungry. I sent you on a mission. So he says he's going to get angry. He's going to get angry. He's going to get angry with Zeb and he's going to kill him. That's what the Mishnah says. And therefore, kal means kal to get angry, he says. That's what kal means. The Rambam means kal means, so kal to get angry, like the first one is fine. That's good.
What does that mean if the second one is not?
Yeah, the second one is bichti nishchat. In other words, the one that you brought first, that's the Korban Pesach.
The second one you brought as the Pesach also.
Okay, but it doesn't count. But it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It was checked for nothing. Again, you burn it, do whatever. It doesn't say. But eat the first one. It says yochlim in arisha now from here. Yochlim in arisha, not the second one. The first one. The second one's not the Korban Pesach. First one's Korban Pesach. Anan loy nechel. Anan we loy nechel loy min arisha loy min hasheni, because then it's going to be breira. We, in other words, they're not the king. Right? According to Rashi, there's no akbid. We are makbid. We want either lamb chops or mutton. Right? We want either one. So what happened? Shuv pamachas nimtzis al toa bevesim b'chayim. They found a lizard in the butcher shop. So the chayish that the lizard had touched the meat. And it's an avat tumma. It's one of the shmoni shrotzim. And therefore the big shul tamei kol suda. I guess they were makbid to eat chulin b'tayra, guys. It doesn't say he had Korban Pesach. Ubik chulatane kol asuda. So mashma they were makbid to eat, chulin b'tayra, right? Bo v'sholos hamelech amlehem l'chu v'sholos hamalka. Go yesterday. It's also a source for this, right? Don't ask me, ask my wife, right? There you go. Bo b'sholos hamalka amra lahem l'chu b'sholos Rabbi Gamliel. Bo b'sholu asoi amra lahem beis hamivachayim reseich etzayin. Was the beis hamivachayim was it hot or cold? Amru loi, they said to Rabbi Gamliel reseich, it's very hot. Amra lahem l'chu ve'tilu aleha koishel tzayin. Go throw on the lizard some cold water. Holchu ve'tilu aleha koishel tzayin. They threw a koishel tzayin on top of it. The riksha, and it crawled away. V'tira Gamliel kol asuda kula. Nimsa melech tali b'malka. Nimsa's malka tali b'Gamliel. Nimsa's kol asuda tali b'Gamliel. Lizards are cold-blooded. Any reptile is cold-blooded, right? So if it's hot, it could be they're not moving because they're taking in the heat, right? So throw a little cold on them, they'll get moving. So it wasn't dead. It would make sense. That doesn't say that in the article. I make that up. So.
Where's Moshe when you look cold-blooded animals just to move?
Cold-blooded. You'll jolt them. In the heat, sometimes they take in the heat. You see that there's a mountain in Muncie, and it says that there's snakes there. And in snake season, when it gets hot, they say be careful. There's poisonous snakes on that mountain. There's rattlesnakes and copheads in New York State. Just in case you want to go hiking, maybe not. Okay, anyway, says the Mishnah. Rabbi, if he forgot what his master told him, then what? He makes a tanai. What's the tanai? Bring both. If my master said a sheep, then I'm with the goat. If my master said the goat, I'm with the sheep. Fred Gemara Shali, what do you mean? You don't have anything. Masha kana Evid, kana Rabbi, you have nothing. So I'm Abaya, what happens over here? Hoylich Eitzel Roya. He goes to the Roya, the shepherd. Harogel Rabbi Etzlai, that the rabbi used to take he does business, he's his glatmark. He goes and buys his meat from him. The rabbi, the shepherd, he wants to help out his master because after all, it's good for business. He's marked the one of the animals. On the condition that the master has no rishus, therefore he can acquire it and have its own carbon. It works. Everything we told you is good. Shachach Rabbi Masha Amaloi. Let's say the master forgot what he told him. It said then you're stuck. If you're stuck, says the Gemara. Rabbi, Loi Shanu that you're stuck. Ela Shachach Achas Rika. Why? The Beidnin the Isrik Dam have. Oh no. I just told you the wrong pshat. What does it say in the Mishnah? Shachach Rabbi Amaloi Shneim Yotzla Beis HaSreifa. No, they both go to Beis HaSreifa. But upeturim melasses Pesach Sheni, meaning you can't eat them because you don't know which one is the Korban Pesach. And in other words, the Pesach has to be eaten by someone who was counted in. Guys, here's the case. I go ahead, I tell my Eved, listen, Eved, go shecht for me a goat. The Eved goes. He sends me a message, and I say, I forgot. So what does he do? He brings both. Good. I forgot when, after he brought it, after the Zrika was done. So B'shas Zrika, I knew. Good. B'shas Zrika, I knew. But I can't eat it. Because why? Why can't I eat it? I don't know which one is my Korban Pesach, and I can't eat something I wasn't counted in on. So what do? You have to burn both of them. There's no suffix over here, take a chance, right? You can't say eat both, right? Why? Because one would be good, the other wouldn't be good. So you can't eat both. But since at the time of the Zrika, I knew which one it was, I just read afterwards, the Korban Pesach at the Shas Zrika was Chazil Achila. Therefore, I'm part of Pesach Sheni. There were two dinim. The din that you have to burn them, and then there's the din that you Yotzev Pesach Sheni. This din that you Yotzev Pesach Sheni is only if I forgot after the Zrika. What happens if I forgot before the Zrika? Then it was never Chazil Achila. And then I have to do Pesach Sheni. Then I won't be Yotzev my Chiyuv. That's what the Abai wants to say. Nachama.
I just want to know if you remember what it was.
What?
I just want to know if you remember what it was.
I guess you ask him what time,
What time did you forget what happened?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, what time you forgot. You ask him what time did you forget. He says the time.
What time you forgot?
Again, these are mitzias, right? You can figure out, I bring animals, right? And I say, oh, no, I forgot. And he looks at his watch. It's 1 o'clock, and it was put 12:30 after that place. Okay? Good. Says more. Shachar Rabbi Meshamah. I'm going to buy loy shanu that what that you yitzur Pesach Sheni elish shachach achas rika. The in the Israel when it was spritz the dam havichazi lachila. Aval shachach the next rika. But if you forgot before this rika that he Israel dam le havichazi lachila chayav masas Pesach Sheni, then you would be chayav to do Pesach Sheni, right? That makes sense. Ikud the masin la brisa. There are those who learn this abayas din on a brisa, a second din. What's the din? Chamisha shenis arvu. Now, in the first case, guys, both karbanos were kosher. Where was the problem? In the carbon or in the man? And then, okay, good. Big difference, right? We spoke about the tzitzmi maratza only on what? On the carbon itself, not the person. Okay, so we made a distinction between a psul and the goof of the animal, and that's something machmas davarashem. Good. So now you have Bai is going to learn the following case. Chamisha shenis arvu oiros pischayim sebizeh. 5 guys, they get the carbon pesach, they shecht and everything. They go ahead, they check their oiros. They don't know which is which. V'nimtzas yabelis ma'achad mehem. And in one of them, you found a mum. So meaning, one of these karbanos was not good. And this is a pasul in what? In the carbon. 4 were good, one wasn't. Kulan yoytz lebeis hasreifa, you got to burn all of them.
Did they do this Rika yet?
But you got to, 1 second, that's what they're going to say. Kulan yoytz lebeis hasreifa, they all have to be burnt. Upeturim milasas pesach sheni, but they're part from doing pesach sheni. The Gemara is going to ask on this. Rabbi, loy shanu, that they all go to beis hasreifa, elishnis arvu la'achas rika. The beidnin, the izrikdam, miya havi chazi la'chila. And therefore, what they part from Pesach Sheni, not the Pesach Shreifa, like I said, Pesach Sheni. Avonis arvul of Neisrika, chayeves lasos Pesach Sheni. But if they got mixed up before this Rika, then they all have to go to Pesach Sheni. So the exact same dialogue, except the distinction being, in the first case it's a psul in the gavra, or it's not a psul but a chesarin. In the second case it's a psul in the carbon. Man de masni amas nison, right? That kosh kena brisa. The one who learned it on the Mishnah, certainly on the Brisa. The one that learned it on the Mishnah where Rashi says, Man de Masni, 3 lines down. Lohad, Loishanu, the Bayamasti, they're both kosher. Elashain, Minuya of Nikar, we don't know, recognizable, Kamar, Dim Hayasafik, Bashasrika, Hayavim Pesacheni, Koshkin, Brisa, the Safik Sulmum, Yesh Bukulan, Vlay nearest Rika Shalahem. In other words, that distinction between Lefnei Zrika and Lachas Zrika, if you hold it by the Psul Gavra, certainly you can hold it by the Psul Carbon. So the one who learned the Baya on the Resha, when the Psul is in the person, that still there's a distinction between Zrika and not Zrika, certainly would make the distinction where it's more severe because there's Mamash Psul, because there's the Abeles, there's a Psul in the animal. So Mandamas that the distinction between Zrika before and afterwards, Koshken Abraisa. Mandamas Abraisa, who's learned in the Braisa, no. The Masnisan, I could say even before Zrika, if you forgot. Even the Kasherin, since they're kosher, there's no psul in the carbon, the Itkar, because if he would remember Havichazi lachila, Kameshmaya Galia, that who it is for. Guys, look at me. Over here. The carbon is a full-fledged good carbon. There's nothing wrong with this carbon. The chesaron is in the person. So what do you want to taina? Since the person forgot before the zrika, like you want to say that it was shlechtet shloilem nuyav, what happens if you remember? Then everything will be good. So according to this, therefore, just because in the case where there's a psul in the animal, there was a mum in the animal, we make a distinction between the phase zrika, lachas zrika. Ken zayin by here, there is no distinction because again, his yediyah can go ahead. Not the mum. No, in this case, not a mum. This is right. You can't change the mum, but over here you can change the mitzias of the yediyah because there's nothing innately wrong with the carbon. So, according to the one who says learns on the Mishnah that where the possibility exists, he makes the distinction between before zrika, after zrika. Kolshken and the Brisa, he's going to make the distinction. But like the second opinion that they learned it then on the Brisa, the distinction between the phase zrika, after zrika, and say it's only where there's a psul in the carbon. But where's not a psul in the carbon, it's the idea of the person, maybe he'll remember. And therefore, even before zrika, it's considered chazi la'achila, and it'd be part from Pesach Sheni.
Thank you.